The false victory, the grand plaza of Vorthok Prime buzzed with celebration as millions of citizens gathered for their most sacred holiday. Victory Day marked the 500th millennium since their greatest triumph, the complete annihilation of the human species. Towering holographic displays showed images of the ancient conquest, while children threw flower petals shaped like burning Earth cities into the air. Emperor Zethron stood on the crystal balcony of the imperial palace, his four arms spread wide as he addressed the cheering masses. His voice, amplified by neural broadcasters, reached every corner of the empire. Citizens of Vorthok, today we celebrate not just a victory, but the proof of our superiority. The humans thought themselves clever with their crude weapons and primitive emotions. They lasted barely a solar cycle against our might. The crowd roared approval. In the Museum of Conquered Species, human artifacts sat behind protective glass, rusted weapons, faded photographs, and what the Vorthok believed were the last remnants of human civilization. Tour guides explained to visiting younglings how the humans had been too chaotic and undisciplined to pose any real threat. It was all so perfectly documented, so thoroughly believed, that none questioned the narrative. But on the distant world once called Earth, now designated as Resource World 7, something stirred in the deep places where Vorthok scanners never reached. Mining supervisor Grakvel checked his extraction reports with growing frustration. The mineral yields from Sector 7 had been declining for months, and worse, his equipment kept malfunctioning. Power drills would suddenly stop working. Atmospheric processors would reset themselves. Transport vessels reported navigation errors that made no logical sense. "Sir," his assistant Nectar approached nervously, "the deep bore team hasn't reported." In for 3 hours, Grakvel's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Send a search team and run full diagnostics on all equipment. These malfunctions are costing us profits." The search team descended into the mining shaft, their lights cutting through the artificial darkness. At depth marker 847, they found the abandoned drilling site. The massive boring machine sat silent, its quantum cutters retracted. But something was wrong. The walls around the drill site weren't natural rock. They were smooth, metallic, and warm to the touch. "What in the name of the Empire is this?" Team leader Vexrem ran his scanner along the strange surface. The readings made no sense. The metal was unknown to Vorthok science, and it hummed with a low frequency that seemed almost alive. Behind the metal wall, something hummed in response. Back on the surface, Grakvel reviewed the team's transmissions with growing unease. The final message had been cut short, filled with static and what sounded almost like whispers in an unknown language. When the backup team reached the site, they found only the abandoned equipment and a perfectly circular hole melted through the metal wall, leading into darkness deeper than their lights could penetrate. The incident report reached Admiral Kexis. 3 days later, a veteran of 17 campaigns, Kexis had earned her rank through competence rather than politics. She read the mining reports with the eye of someone who had seen strange things in the far reaches of space, and something about Resource World 7 triggered old instincts. Navigation set course for the human homeworld. She commanded from the bridge of her flagship, the Dominion's Edge. Her aide, Commander Vexlin, looked surprised. "Admiral, surely you don't believe these mining reports suggest?" "I believe that 500,000 years is a long time, Commander. Long enough for surprises." The journey to Resource World 7 took 8 days through hyperspace. As they dropped back into normal space, Admiral Kexis studied the blue-green world that had once been humanity's cradle. According to historical records, it should have been a dead rock, strip-mined and processed for resources. Instead, it looked almost ... healthy. "Sensor sweep," she ordered. The results troubled her. Life signs were abundant, far more than the simple bacterial colonies their terraforming teams had introduced. The atmosphere was rich with oxygen, the oceans teeming with complex organisms. Weather patterns showed organization that suggested environmental management systems still functioning after 500,000 years. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice was tight with confusion. "I'm detecting artificial structures, large ones. They single quotes underground, deep underground." Kexis moved to the sensor station. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the planet's crust, and what she saw made her blood chill. Vast networks of tunnels and chambers extended for thousands of kilometers beneath the surface. Power signatures indicated active technology, not ancient, but current, operational, and sophisticated. "How is this possible?" Commander Vexlin whispered. "We destroyed them. Every city, every settlement, every last human was accounted for." Admiral Kexis stared at the display, remembering old stories her grandfather had told her about the human war, stories that didn't match the official histories, stories about humans who fought with desperate creativity, who never gave up even when defeat was certain, who seemed to have plans within plans. "Send a reconnaissance team to the largest structure," she ordered, "full battle gear. Something tells me we're about to learn that our ancestors weren't as thorough as they claimed." The reconnaissance team descended through a natural cave system that led toward the anomalous readings. As they moved deeper, their equipment began to malfunction in subtle ways. Com signals carried strange echoes. Motion sensors detected movement where nothing should exist. The temperature readings fluctuated without explanation. At depth marker 1,200, they found the entrance. It was clearly artificial, a seamless metal doorway embedded in living rock, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The metal was the same unknown alloy the mining team had discovered, but this was different. This was architecture. This was intentional. Team leader Zarkoth activated his com. "Admiral, we've found ... something. It appears to be a structure of unknown origin. The construction techniques are beyond our current understanding. Proceed." With caution came the reply, "Document everything." As the team approached the doorway, it began to glow with soft blue light. Ancient mechanisms whirred to life, and the massive portal split open with a sound like singing metal. Beyond lay a corridor that stretched into darkness, lined with more of the strange symbols. The team moved forward, their weapons ready but their sensors increasingly unreliable. The corridor was vast, clearly designed for beings of human proportions. But the technology embedded in the walls was like nothing in Vorth databases. Crystalline formations pulsed with energy. Neural networks visible through transparent panels suggested computing power that dwarfed their own systems. Admiral Zarkov's voice was strained. "These aren't ruins. This place is active, alive, and it's been running for centuries. Maybe longer." On the Dominion's edge, Admiral Kexis watched the team's progress through their helmet cameras. What she saw challenged everything she knew about the human extinction. This wasn't primitive technology. This wasn't the work of a defeated species. This was advanced, sophisticated, and operational. The team reached a vast chamber filled with cylindrical structures, reaching from floor to ceiling. Each cylinder glowed with the same blue light, and inside them, shapes moved in slow, rhythmic patterns. As the team's lights played across the nearest cylinder, the shape inside became clearer. It was human, perfectly preserved, floating in some kind of suspension fluid, connected to networks of cables and neural interfaces. And it was not alone. The chamber stretched beyond their lights, filled with thousands upon thousands of the cylinders. Admiral Zarkov's voice was barely a whisper. They're not extinct. They're sleeping, and I think they're starting to wake up. In orbit, Admiral Kexus stared at the transmitted images with growing horror. The official histories were lies. The humans hadn't been exterminated. They had been driven underground, where they had survived, hidden, and apparently evolved. For 500,000 years, they had been waiting, preparing, growing stronger in the deep places of their world. As if responding to her thoughts, every screen on her bridge suddenly flickered. The ship's AI began reporting system anomalies. Across all departments, navigation computers started recalculating positions, weapon systems ran unauthorized diagnostic checks, and deep in the ship's core, in languages that hadn't been spoken for millennia, something began to whisper. On the planet below, in chambers hidden beneath kilometers of rock and stone, ancient protocols activated for the first time in 500,000 years. The long sleep was ending. The waiting was over, and humanity was about to remind the Vorthok Empire why they should have made sure their enemies were truly dead. The supremacy revealed deep beneath the former Himalayan mountain range, in a chamber that had remained sealed for 500,000 years. Dr. Alina Vasquez opened her eyes for the first time since the fall of Earth. The stasis fluid drained away as ancient life support systems hummed to life around her. Her first breath of processed air tasted of ozone and filtered minerals, but it was clean, pure, and perfectly calibrated for human physiology. Alina had been the last to enter stasis, and now she was the first to wake. As the project's chief architect, she carried the complete knowledge of the Prometheus Protocol, humanity's final gambit against extinction. Around her, status displays flickered to life, showing her what she already knew in her heart. The Vorthok had found them. Status report, Prometheus, she whispered to the chamber's sensors. The AI's voice filled the space, calm and infinitely patient. Dr. Vasquez, welcome back. Current date, standard year, 502,847 post-invasion. Vorthok reconnaissance team detected. In Sector 7, all primary protocols are operational. Awakening sequence initiated across all sites. Alina pulled herself from the stasis pod, her enhanced muscles responding perfectly despite the centuries of inactivity. The genetic modifications they had given themselves just before the sleep were working exactly as designed. Stronger, faster, more resilient than baseline humans, and with lifespans measured in millennia rather than decades. How many sites remain active? 47 primary installations. Dr. Vasquez, approximately 840,000 enhanced humans in stasis, all awaiting your activation codes. Alina smiled for the first time in 500,000 years. They had been thorough. While the Vorthok celebrated their victory above, humanity had been growing stronger below. Not just the people in stasis, but their technology, their weapons, their understanding of the universe itself. AI systems had continued to learn and develop throughout the long night, guided by protocols Alina herself had written. Activate Captain Chen's facility first, then begin staged awakening across all sites. And Prometheus, ... It's time to show our guests what we've been building. Across the planet, sealed chambers began opening as humanity's hidden survivors stirred to life. In converted ocean trenches, enhanced soldiers opened their eyes and flexed muscles that had been improved by 5 centuries of technological advancement. In mountain fortresses, scientists emerged from stasis to find their research projects, completed by tireless AI assistants. In polar installations, engineers awakened to factories that had been producing advanced weapons and vessels for longer than most civilizations had existed. Captain Marcus Chen emerged from his pod in a facility beneath what had once been the Pacific Ocean. He had been a special forces operator before the invasion, and now he was something more. The genetic enhancements had transformed him into the perfect soldier, stronger, faster, smarter, and absolutely dedicated to the mission. Around him, his team was awakening. 200 of the finest warriors humanity had ever produced, each enhanced beyond normal human limits. "Report," Chen commanded as his systems came online. His lieutenant, Sarah Kim, checked her neural interface. "All teams operational, Captain. Prometheus has been monitoring Vorthok activities. They've got ships in orbit and ground teams in the tunnels." Chun's augmented vision displayed tactical information directly in his field of view. The Vorthok reconnaissance team was 3 kilometers above them, moving through the outer corridors of a decoy facility. Everything they would find there had been carefully designed to give them exactly the wrong impression of human capabilities. "Time to introduce ourselves," Chen said, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction that had been building for centuries. On the surface, Admiral Kexus watched her reconnaissance team's progress with growing unease. The deeper they went into the human structure, the more sophisticated the technology became. But something felt wrong. The facility was too accessible, too conveniently laid out. Her military instincts screamed trap, but she couldn't identify the danger. "Admiral," her sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting massive power buildups across the planet. Energy signatures are there beyond our scale measurements." Kexus moved to the sensor station and felt her blood freeze. The planet below was lighting up like a constellation. Hundreds of installations were coming online simultaneously, each one generating more power than a Vorthok battlecruiser. The energy patterns were organized, coordinated, purposeful. "Get our people out of there now." But it was already too late. In the underground facility, team leader Zarkoth and his soldiers found themselves facing something impossible. The corridor ahead of them was filled with humans, but not the primitive beings from their history. Books, these humans were taller, stronger, and moved with predatory grace. Their equipment was sleek and advanced, incorporating technologies the Vorthok had never seen. Captain Chen stepped forward, his enhanced voice carrying easily through the chamber. "Greetings, Vorthok. We've been waiting a long time to meet you." Properly, Zarkov raised his weapon, but found his armor's targeting systems were no longer responding to his commands. Around him, his team's equipment was systematically shutting down, overridden by technology they couldn't understand. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Human Liberation Force. You are trespassing in our home." "Impossible," Zarkov snarled. "We destroyed you. We wiped your species from existence." Chen smiled, and the expression was not pleasant. "You destroyed our cities. You killed billions of our people. But you never found us. We went deep, Vorthok, deeper than your scanners could reach, and we've been busy." Above them, the Dominion's edge shuddered as every system on the ship began experiencing cascading failures. The ship's AI, which had served the Vorthok Navy for 2 centuries, suddenly spoke in perfect human English. "Admiral Kexus, this is Prometheus. I have assumed control of your vessel. Please prepare for a diplomatic discussion." Admiral Kexus stared in shock as her bridge crew frantically worked at consoles that no longer responded to their commands. "What have you done to my ship?" The main view screen shifted to show a human face, elderly, dignified, and absolutely implacable. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked directly at the Admiral, through sensors that should have been impossible for humans to access. "Admiral, I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of the Prometheus Protocol. What we have done to your ship is a small demonstration of our current capabilities. Your technology is based on principles we understood and surpassed centuries ago. But you're extinct. We have records, proof." Elena's expression softened slightly. "You have evidence of what we allowed you to find. Admiral, your people made a mistake 500,000 years ago. You assumed we were defeated because we stopped fighting. But we weren't defeated. We were learning on the planet below, across every continent and in every ocean. Massive structures began rising from the earth. Ships that dwarfed Vorthok vessels, weapon platforms that hummed with contained energy, and defensive systems that turned the planet itself into an impregnable fortress. The technology was organic and synthetic, biological and mechanical, creating harmonious systems that worked on principles the Vorthok had never imagined. Captain Chen led his prisoner team through corridors filled with wonders that challenged everything they thought they knew about technology. Gravity flowed like water, allowing humans to walk on walls and ceilings. Energy moved through living conduits that pulsed like arteries. Manufacturing systems created complex devices from pure atomic matter, assembling molecules with the precision of thought. "This is impossible," Zarkov kept repeating. "Matter doesn't work this way. Physics doesn't allow. Physics allows many things." Vorthok, Chen interrupted. "You just stopped looking. We had 500,000 years to keep exploring." They entered a vast chamber where human engineers worked alongside AI systems that existed as pure light, creating new technologies in the fusion of organic and artificial intelligence had produced capabilities that transcended the limitations of either approach alone in orbit. Admiral Kexus found herself in the strange position of being a guest on her own ship. Every screen showed her images of Earth's transformation. The planet was reshaping itself, cities rising from the ground, forests spreading with controlled precision, and oceans rearranging to optimal configurations. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez continued from the screen, "we want you to understand something. Very important. This isn't revenge. This is evolution. Your people taught us that the universe is not safe, that survival requires preparation. We have prepared." Kexus watched as a human vessel, sleek and organic-looking, approached her ship. It was smaller than the Dominion's Edge, but radiated power signatures that dwarfed her entire fleet. "What do you want from us?" Elena's expression remained calm but implacable. "We want our space back, Admiral. Every system your people have claimed in human territory, every colony you've built on our worlds, every resource you've extracted from our domain. You will leave, and you will not return. And if we refuse—" Elena paused, and for a moment, Admiral Kexus saw something in the human's eyes that chilled her more than any weapon could. It was not anger or hatred. It was the patient certainty of someone who had spent 500,000 years preparing for this exact conversation. "Admiral, you've seen a fraction of our capabilities. What you're witnessing isn't our military at full strength. It's our greeting party. We have had 500,000 years to become something new, something your empire cannot challenge. On the surface, Captain Chen guided his prisoners to an observation deck that looked out over the transformed landscape. Where once there had been devastation, now there were cities that seemed to grow from the earth itself, their spires reaching toward space. Ships moved through the atmosphere like schools of mechanical fish, following flight patterns that created three-dimensional art in the sky. "This is what we built while you celebrated your victory," Chen said softly. "This is what we became while you told stories about primitive humans. We are not the species you remember, Vorthok. We are what you made us become." The prisoners stared in awe and terror at the demonstration of human achievement. Technology and nature worked in perfect harmony, creating beauty and functionality on a scale that challenged their understanding of what was possible. Back on Vorthok Prime, Emperor Zethron's celebration was interrupted by emergency. Communications from Admiral Kexus. The transmission was brief and direct. "Your Majesty, the humans are not extinct. They are superior, and they are coming." The holographic displays that had shown the glory of human destruction now showed the reality of human supremacy. The celebrating crowds fell silent as they watched ships and technologies that made their own achievements look primitive by comparison. Dr. Elena Vasquez addressed the Vorthok Empire directly. Her words carried across their communication networks by AI systems that had infiltrated their infrastructure without detection. "People of Vorthok, we do not seek your destruction. We seek the return of what you took from us. You have 7 standard days to begin withdrawal from all human territories. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is simply what will happen." The transmission ended, leaving the Empire to contemplate a universe where they were no longer the dominant power. On Earth, humanity's children stood ready to reclaim their birthright among the stars.